Hi, my name is Gary, and I'm coming to you from somewhere in the Rockies, and today I want to go over my November TBR. So, the first couple of books that I'm planning on reading this month are actually for book clubs. So the first book club book that I'm doing this month is Zeros by Chuck Wendig. This is the story of 5 different hackers. They're different kinds of hackers, and they have been recruited by the government to perform some cyber espionage and those kinds of things. Basically, they are rounded up and they're given the option of either working for the government for a year or spending 10 years in prison. And while they are performing their duties, they uncover this sinister secret lurking behind the scenes, an artificial intelligence named Typhoon, that as it continues to grow, it becomes even more and more dangerous. And so they have to find a way to escape their government handlers and stop this sinister problem. As I said, this is the book for Sword and Laser. If you're not familiar with Sword and Laser, it's a podcast book club. They record or produce an episode every week. It's hosted by Veronica Belmont and Tom Merritt, and they do all things science fiction and fantasy. As well as discussing the current book that they're reading, they also do artist interviews and talk about news in the science fiction and fantasy world. The second book that I'm reading for book clubs this month is Shadow of the Fox by Julie Kagawa. And this is a high fantasy set in a Japanese-inspired world. It draws heavily from Japanese mythology, and it's the story of a young girl who has a secret. She is actually part fox spirit and has some abilities to do illusions and those things, and she is guarding a fragment of the Scroll of 1,000 Prayers. And the time is coming when the great sea dragon will be rising from the sea, and whoever holds the entire scroll can be granted a wish. And so there are lots of different people who are trying to find this particular scroll. This is the Booksplosion book for November, and so I'm really looking forward to reading it. On my TBR, I've got some other fiction books I'm looking forward to read. First up is Zenith by Sasha Alsberg and Lindsay Cummings. This is the story of a young woman named Androma, who is the captain of a space pirate crew. They're all female crew. And when a job goes wrong and the crew finds themselves at the mercy of a bounty hunter from Androma's past, they are forced into a dangerous mission against a bloodthirsty warlord and end up being the only thing standing between the universe and total destruction. Next up is The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, Issue 3. This is actually a comic book series that is a companion series to the new Netflix series by the same name. And this just is a darker retelling of the Sabrina the Teenage Witch character. Originally, she was a side character in the Archie comics and then became popular through the TV show Sabrina the Teenage Witch starring Melissa Joan Hart. Netflix is rebooting the series with a much darker tone. And so I've been reading the companion comic books going along with those, and so far they're pretty fun, and I'm going to be starting issue 3. And the final fiction book that I'm going to be reading this month, or hopefully reading, is In Farleigh Field by Rhys Bowen. This is a historical fiction novel set during World War II in England, and basically it's the story of this family led by Lord Westernham. Is kind of an aristocracy family, live on a large manor, Farleigh Field, and when a dead parachutist in a questionable uniform shows up on their property, questions of espionage show up. And so MI5 recruits Ben Creswell, who is a family friend, to investigate this. And so I've read some of Rhys Bowen's other books, and they're really interesting. It's kind of a cool look at the aristocracy of Britain, especially during the World War II era. So I'm really looking forward to this read. Also this month I plan on reading a couple of non-fiction books. The first one is The Pursuit of God by A.W. Tozer. This is probably his most well-known book. And it's basically talking about how as Christians we are supposed to be pursuing God. We are supposed to be seeking a deeper, intimate relationship with Him. I've read this book before, but I really felt drawn to read it again is actually after listening to an interview with the author of the next book I'm about to mention, where he talked about that he was inspired by Pursuit of God, that I decided to go ahead and reread this book. And frankly, it's one that I think I should come back and revisit from time to time, just because it contains such great information that I really want to keep fresh in my mind. So, like I said, the second book is The Name of God by John Mark Comer. This is a book in a similar vein to Pursuit of God. It's a book that also talks about developing our intimacy and our relationship with God. This one focuses about the fact that God has a name, and that name is Yahweh, and the implications of what that is and what that means to our life. Lastly, this month, there's a couple of poetry books that I want to read. Really love poetry. I think it's a fun thing, and I'm really enjoying, and there's a couple of books I really want to look at. The first one is called The Sun and Her Flowers by Rupi Kaur. I'm not familiar with this poet, but I've heard really good things about this book, so I'm really looking forward to reading it. And frankly, there are times when I think just kicking back in a comfy chair with a cup of tea and a good book of poetry is a great way to relax. So the final book I plan on reading this month, the final poetry book that I'm wanting to read, is actually The Undressing by Lee Young Lee. And yes, this is a physical book that I have actually purchased. I like to purchase physical poetry books when I can, because it's just really great to pick them up and read them. I was first introduced to Lee Young Lee by my wife. He's actually her favorite poet, and I just really love his work. He's skilled at taking the mundane, the everyday, and finding depth and mystery, and connecting it to history and to current events, and just weaving these amazing, deep poems out of what he's doing. And it's a phenomenal work. He's an amazing poet. This is an incredible book. I've already started reading it. I'm really looking forward to reading the other poems, and the fact that my wife loves him as well. This is a really great thing that we can share and that we can discuss, and so I'm really looking forward to reading this book. So those are books on my TBR for the month of November. Hopefully I will be able to get all of them read, but we will just kind of have to see. I want to thank you for watching this video. Let me know what books you're planning on reading down in the discussions. I'd really like to see what's going on, and I might find some new ones to put on my list for next month. If you've enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Also be sure to subscribe to my channel. Click on that bell icon so you can be notified every time I post new content. And just again, thank you so much for watching. Until next time, read more books. Don't forget to click the bell so you can be notified every time I upload a new video.